1300014. The existing acreage is 208 acres, 0.0348 of an acre. The address is Broadmoor Lane. The proposed property size for the site plan review is 30.47. That has not been divided from that 208 acres, but there is 50 foot of frontage off Broadmoor Lane. The current zoning is mixed-use center. The issue for consideration this evening is proposed waiver of one development standard, which is the side yard setback. That comes from zoning code 2.407.6D and 2.407.7, and that is on slide 14, and I'll go into further detail. Also, the site plan review for the zoning code is zoning code 1.303, and that is on slide number 18. I'll go into further detail as well. So, of course, the review process is the site plan is before County Commissioners this evening, and then the preliminary plan would go before Regional Planning Commission. An aerial of the site, public street section. This is a site plan that was submitted. This is a landscaping plan showing the street buffer, a little more up close detail of that plan, the signage, patio homes, and again, the patio homes are more geared toward older adults. Some may have mobility issues, so those had the slab entrance, the zero level entrance, so that you could use that with walkers or someone in a wheelchair. Does have the options for grab bars and lever handles, things of that nature. These are drawings of the patio homes and what they would look like. Single family homes, again, these are geared more toward the single family. These are two-story for the most part. This is some of the drawings for those single family homes. The waiver request for 2.407.6. The waiver of the development standards, the applicant may submit a proposal for a waiver or reduction of development standards, which is what happens. The approval authority, BOCC of course, may approve a waiver of general development requirements for lighting, parking, signage, access, landscaping, and buffer, height, lot size and development, or additional development requirements upon finding that. And we talked about these before. I think the one that we covered most was number 2. And that's the proposed development would not be injurious to the public health, safety, or general welfare of Warren County. Typical lot layout. Again, this is showing that 5-foot setback for each side, giving you a total of 10. And the staff summary, the location, of course, we've talked about. Parking is required 2 spaces. Those are shown, and then they also have parking in the garage. The landscaping complies, signage, lighting, and of course the service structure is not an issue because it would be private trash pickup. The site plan criteria, this is from section 1.303.6. Again, we covered these last time, I think, in pretty much detail, but we will go ahead and I want to highlight number F, which is vehicular access and circulation streets. Also K, public service impact, including without limitation roadways, police, fire, and EMS protection. And then N, emergency access and service facilities and public safety. The reviewing departments, I will turn over to Hadel.
And remind Adele that she was sworn in at last hearing.
Yes.
You will affirm that you were already sworn in.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So as Michelle mentioned, the reviewing departments, there were several departments who reviewed this proposed development, including Warren County departments and Turtle Creek Township. RPC received several letters, including a letter from Turtle Creek Township that the township is not in support of the development and the township requires an access point from Green Tree Road. Another letter is from Lebanon City Schools, and the schools are in support for this development. And Butler County will provide sewer service to the proposed development. And these are the recommendations from RPC staff. And then I have few backup slides that provide additional information about the discussion that we had in the last meeting. So this is a density analysis along Green Tree Road and what was approved for this area. And another one, this show the access to and from major roads to the proposed development through Green Tree Road, Union Road, and State Route 63. And this one shows also a possibility for a connection to Green Tree Road through the PAP oil parcel. This is a drone photo from Core 5, shows on the lower left corner the connection through Last Mile Drive between Core 5 and Shaker Run. And another view on the upper right corner shows Last Mile Drive, how it connects to Shaker Run, and the distance between this connection and the proposed access to Shaker Woods. And this is a condition of resolution number 20-1166, where it requires a stop street to Shaker Run development to be installed to the property line, and the stop street shall be improved with structural traffic control devices as approved by the Warren County Engineer's Office. And this, of course, to prevent semi-truck traffic to Shaker Run. So this is what was designed by Core 5 and also implemented. And some photos for what was implemented, and there are no overhead traffic control devices to control the traffic. Just like the design of that road. And also, per Warren County Engineer's Office, Chief Deputy Kurt Weber, his office recommends that the barrier allowing access through Last Mile Drive not be removed until completion of the State Route 63 road improvement project, and that estimated by the end of year 2025.
Wait, I don't understand that. If you could go back to that. He's recommending we take out the traffic control device?
Yeah, there's now constructional barriers, so he recommends like to keep these until like the completion of the improvement to State Road 63.
But it's not going to be the restriction on trucks moving in through the neighborhood.
No, it's restriction for all different types of
Okay,
traffic.
but yeah, I just want to be clear on that, because
yes.
we mandated Core 5 put in a
Yes.
restriction on truck
Yes.
traffic going up through the residential area.
Yes, and this was applied by the design that you see here, like it's like the road is narrowing towards Shaker Run, and also there is this median and reduced width for the lanes.
But they actually have a barrier, do they not?
Yes,
Of some
yes.
like,
A temporary
For the
barrier
semi.
yes, that will not allow
during construction.
anybody to go through there.
Yeah.
And Kurt is saying through the end of 2025, no one should be able to go through there. And the last mile connection be made.
And also, this is what was approved for Shaker Run. Density for Shaker Run is 2.83 units per acre. Proposed units for the two PUDs, PUD 1 and PUD 2, PUD 2, sorry, it's 1,353, where a total of allowed units, it's 1,383. And also this resolution, number 16-1109, shows item 4, which is a conditional of, condition of approval for 3 stop streets to the north, west, and south parcels. And it shows here on this exhibit that is attached to the resolution. This slide shows the topography for the subject site, and another one for the flood data. And with this, I conclude my presentation. Michelle and I are ready to take any question.
Great, thank you. Dave, do you have any questions here?
Well, yeah, kind of. So the only question before us right now is a waiver request regarding the 5-foot setback, but then you also put things about the site plan review criteria. So-
Let me answer that. The PowerPoint presentation was modified to clarify for you, if you'll go back, Hadil, to slide 1. The issue is, what you have before you is an application for site plan review. In addition to that, the applicant is asking for a waiver of the side yard setback. Some of the questions that were raised during the August 8th hearing, the modifications to Exhibit PP are attempting to address those. I listened to the hearing using the YouTube video. There were a lot of questions about how does this property exist? And the answer is the auditor's records are inaccurate. There were a couple of references to that. It's actually one parcel owned by, all this information is very important, even though it seems very mundane. The owner is PAP Oil Company. They took title to this in 2020, and it's a 208-acre parcel. The 30.47 acres is what you are reviewing as part of the site plan review. That 30.47 acres has not been divided. There's a difference in concepts of what's you're used to hearing. You're used to hearing the term subdivided. This is not a subdivision yet. It can be divided by land survey. So when it's over 5 acres, the Planning Commission wouldn't even be involved in reviewing that. I checked today with Bob Fox, supervisor of the Warren County Engineer Map Office, and there has not even been a survey submitted for review, much less filed for this 30-acre parcel. And even if a survey is on file through that division of land process, the parcel does not get created until a deed is recording, which conveys it out of the 208 acres and creates a 30-acre parcel. The terminology that kept being used by Commissioner Grossman, I guess, was grammatically correct, but not legally correct. It's not a partition. A partition is a legal concept that has nothing to do with what we're doing here. And if you'll move forward, Hidil, if you can assist me. So we broke out the two issues as I mentioned. So it's a site plan review, and I'll talk about that a little bit. Site plan review is in 1.303, and specifically, I'll get into it using other slides. But on as a part of this, as I mentioned, there is a proposal by the applicant to waive one development standard. Can you go to slide 14?
Yes.
So for purposes of this application, what the zoning person has told you, or witness has told you here today, is this property is zoned mixed use, and that's in section 2.407 of the county zoning code. However, because there's not a commercial component, they are submitting a proposed site plan for what's called an integrated development. And it's an integrated development because they have the patio homes and the single family homes. They don't have to have the commercial component. So that's permitted.
They don't have to?
They don't have to under the scheme that they're proposing through this site plan. They do not have to do that. As part of an integrated development, the applicant may ask for a waiver of some development standard. And in our zoning code, there is a chart which sets forth the development standards table that they can either comply with or they can ask for a waiver of. And I'm talking about this in detail about waiver because there was a lot of confusion and misinformation at the first hearing. So what they've done is they've filed a request or proposal to waive only the setback. As Michelle indicated here tonight, the zoning inspector's testimony, This 2.407.6D lists a number of things that an applicant can ask for a waiver on. And one of the things that's highlighted there is access. The developer has not asked for a waiver on access, nor should the developer ask for a waiver on access, because if you look at the table of development standards, there is no development standard for a mixed-use development like this that requires a certain number of accesses to the property. That is not a requirement of zoning. That is a subdivision requirement. And if you go back to, don't go back, but on slide 2, Michelle, the zoning inspector, indicated that the process was first the Board of County Commissioners, and the second process, because this is site plan review, then it goes to the Regional Planning Commission. There is, in the subdivision regulations, an express condition that if you have a development that's proposed and going through the subdivision process, which this is not yet, that the development has to have 2 accesses if it has 50 or more lots, which this development, what we've seen thus far from a concept plan, would have that. And if they need a waiver, they would need a waiver to only have 1 access. The access that's proposed, as shown, is the Broadmoor Lane. That's the only access. So that's a subdivision requirement that the Planning Commission has jurisdiction on, that does not come back to the Board of County Commissioners. So that's not a decision you're being asked to make tonight, because they haven't asked for a waiver of a development standard related to access, because there is no development standard related to access. With that being said, however, there is criteria that is to be used in reviewing, and if you want to go to slide 18, thank you. This is a site plan review hearing, and these factors, I think they may add up to about 16, are what you have to evaluate the application on. This is a quasi-judicial hearing. It is not a legislative zoning hearing, so you do not have discretion. Your task is to evaluate the application using these factors. I heard testimony from Trustee Jonathan Sams from Turtle Creek Township that there were issues involving the emergency access. So in making your decision, if you apply these criteria, what Michelle has highlighted and read for you here are 3 factors that you can look at on that specific issue about whether or not this proposed site plan would have any adverse impact on vehicular access, on public service such as fire and EMS, or emergency access and service facilities. You can approve a site plan review application, you can approve it with conditions, or you can deny it. And if you believe that there is a preponderance of competent, credible evidence that is presented on the record to you by way of the testimony or any of the exhibits that causes you any concern based on any of these factors, and as it relates to the emergency services response time, etc., there's 3 factors right there. That's grounds for you not to use discretion, but to make your decision that you could deny this site plan application if you think the evidence rises to the level of that. There was also testimony at the first hearing from Trustee Jonathan Sams about the township opposing the, it's called a waiver, it's really a variance, but it's called a waiver if you'll go back to slide 14, because they did ask for a waiver of the side yard setback, and he suggested that there's concern that when houses are that close, fire can jump from one roof to the other, And you know, and I don't want to bring in outside evidence, but there's been experiences like that in Warren County. But on that waiver requirement, the criteria or the standards are here, and you wouldn't use 1.303.6, 16 factors or criteria. You would use this, and what this tells you is if they're asking for a waiver of the general development requirements of any of the things in the list, and they are the setback, then you could put a condition on them to approve it without conditions. You could put a condition on them to, so that you could approve it, or you could deny it. And one of the factors that Michelle has highlighted is you could do that based on grounds of public health, safety, or general welfare. So it's obviously a public safety concern if you find that you have a preponderance of reliable, credible evidence that's been put into the record. And certainly, not only do you have the testimony from Trustee Jonathan Sams, but you heard testimony from other witnesses. And then because this is quasi-judicial, once all the opponents have completed their testimony, as chair or president of the board, Commissioner Jones is going to give the applicant the opportunity to offer rebuttal evidence to what they heard Turtle Creek say, what they heard the residents say. So that's what you're tasked with. You've got this issue of the site plan review, the overall application, and in addition to that, you have this proposal. So you have two different code sections that you would apply to make that decision. And this is one of those that I would recommend to you, it's your decision to make, that once all the evidence is completed, the rebuttal opportunity is afforded the applicant, and we go through the formalities that we're required to go through by law, that this is one that you would take under advisement and you would vote to deliberate, close the public hearing and deliberate in private, and then issue a decision at a future date. Because this is subject to an appeal to the Court of Common Pleas.
Okay, so, we would ordinarily then hear again from the applicant, for which we also have a letter of request to continue because their staff is unable to be here. So,
In your practice, because you put this on a Thursday night to give the community the opportunity to be here if they worked during the day and weren't able to be here on
Yes.
August 8th, there might be some new folks here that might want to testify, and it's been your practice before you continue something to allow them to be heard in case they can't come back or not. That's up to you. But you could do that, and then you obviously can entertain the applicant's request for continuance.
yeah, I mean, based on the conversation from the last public hearing, we had requests from residents to be able to provide this opportunity for those who couldn't be here in the day to be heard. I think what I'm inclined to propose, Commissioner Young, is that we hear from any of those residents who didn't testify previously, give them the opportunity to testify, and then I guess I want to make sure that the applicant has their opportunity to be able to provide rebuttal information, and if they are not here, then, you know, I have to be able to continue the hearing in order to take that public testimony, correct?
Yeah, and you have a request, but the applicant is here, and this time he brought his lawyer along with him, who's been burning up my email and my telephone since September the 8th. But Rick and I go way back to the Stotler days of all things.
Oh, boy.
So they are here, and I don't know if they're prepared to present tonight or they're just here for purposes of renewing their request for continuance. But yes, what you outlined sounds appropriate.
Okay, so does the applicant want to provide some guidance here, please?
Yeah,
And-
give a little insight, and I want to thank Mr. McGarry.
And before you, speak, I don't think you were here at the
No, I
last
was not.
hearing,
But
so.
he doesn't need to be sworn in. He
'Cause
just
he's a
needs to-
lawyer.
He's a lawyer. He's not giving testimony unless he has some personal knowledge of something.
Okay.
And thank you, Commissioner Jones, Mr. Young, and I want to thank Mr. McGarry for literally, because when I got brought into this, my head, I have to be honest, was spinning. And I thought, I'll call Bruce, and he straightened me out on the procedure, the waiver issue, all of those issues, which he laid out to all of you very, very succinctly. The reason why we had.
So go ahead and state your name. and-
Rick Palo, Aronoff, Rosen and Hunt, 425 Walnut Street, Suite 2200. We do have Mark Linger here, but the head of land development with Dries, who was here last time, is the one who cannot be here because of another conflict. That's the reason why we had requested a variant or a continuance. And we would like to ask for your consideration for a continuance to put on our rebuttal. And I do have, in connection with that, a question for Mr. McGarry. I just noticed that Mr. Grossman is not here. And would he have to recuse himself at the next hearing? Not that it matters at this point. Or could he review the YouTube and vote?
The latter has always been my position, and especially the technology this board uses. He could do the same thing I did and agonize through the August 8th YouTube video.
We make for fun TV.
Well, we were asking the audience for legal advice, so, because I wasn't here.
Yeah,
so.
I did watch that also late into the night when, last night when I was watching the debate, so this was much more interesting, frankly. So anyway, that was the reason for the request, because Mr. Hebler cannot be here, the head of land development with Dries, and he expressed an interest, not an interest, but it's frankly a desire to be here, and again, request your consideration to at least allow us to put on any rebuttal at a later meeting.
Thank you. Okay, then, Bruce, I'm going to ask if there's anybody here who wishes to speak either in favor or against, who didn't already speak at the previous hearing, to please rise so I can swear you in, and then we'll just take people one at a time who wish to speak on this.
If anyone.
So, is there anybody who wishes to speak? I recognize lots of the faces from the last time, so thank you for coming back. So, seeing that there is no one here,
You're asking for new people or somebody that's learned additional stuff since they were here last time?
well, I'm
Because
asking,
I just learned a lot of additional stuff right here.
yeah. So, you have already been sworn in, sir, so if you'd like to add new information to your testimony, you may do so. You sure?
The process is. So there could, I guess the thing I wonder. so
Sir,
instead
I just, for the record, I need you to come and restate your name and affirm that you were sworn in previously, and your address, please.
of Mark Farrell, I was sworn in, 1332 Golf Club Drive. I guess the question, as I hear it, hadn't even been surveyed. And it's like the cart is before the horse here. This whole development needed to happen, and it will happen, I'm not against that. But it really needed to come in from Green Tree and then spread out that way. What has happened here is we got 250 homes we've already built up in the one part of Shaker Run. We got 250 now that they're building down here. They do have their two entrances, but there was also said they were gonna take an entrance into 63. And now you're saying not until the end of 2025. And a lot of these houses have already been built. So and then the other thing, Dries is out of room to build, so they're here because they want to build more. So the cart is before the horse with the whole development that really needs to occur there. That's the kind of the problem I got. And then with the traffic here and so forth, we've talked about that, and the fire and so forth, and the safety. But I don't know whether it's happening at the regional, or the planning, or here, but something doesn't seem right to where we need to be involved as residents. And maybe it happened 10 years ago, I don't know. That's the concern I have.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate you coming back and sharing that. You echoed some of what trustee Sams talked about, so thank you for that. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition who hasn't previously done so? Any?
I was sworn in last time, Christine Pudvan, 1250 Ironwood Drive, Lebanon, Ohio, 45036. I don't understand what just happened today, I guess. I couldn't hear very well the second woman who got up to speak, or the first woman. And it sounds like you're not going to, it sounds like we're not going to have a entrance off of Green Tree now. We're going to go with 63. And if that's correct, as I recall, Jonathan Tham said that that would still be a problem to get to the development in a timely fashion for the safety and security of the people who live there. So I'm not completely against this community. I think it's well planned. The houses are a little close together. There's some things that I would like to have them change, but that seems like that's not what's being questioned here. It's the distance apart and the street. So can you make it clear for me as to what we're talking about with the streets now? It seems like that changed from last time.
So I don't think that the issue has changed. I think what the legal counsel has explained is that the issue for which we have jurisdiction at this moment in time has to do with the side yard setback. So that is the issue on which we may consider those factors that had to do with the public health and safety and the circulation of roadways. Many of the issues that trustee Sams raised at the last hearing. So the only issue for consideration at this stage of the game has to do with the side yard setbacks.
Bruce, is that what
No,
you said? I don't
no,
think that's what you said.
not what I said. That is one issue for you to decide. The big issue for you to decide is whether or not to approve the site plan application. That's the entire application, not just the side yard setback. The side yard setback is an ancillary thing. So they filed a site plan application, and they want you to approve that. You have to evaluate that based on slide 18, which is 1.303.6. Go down to 18, that's 14. Maybe Michelle can assist.
Thank you.
So you're saying that we could approve this site plan, but not the side yard setbacks? How
You
could that be?
You can approve both. You can approve with conditions, or you can deny it.
Well, I guess I need you to explain for me then how we can approve the site plan if the setbacks, if we don't approve the setbacks.
Well, you should do that first. It was listed on slide number 2 as the first issue. And even if you didn't approve it, they still want you to evaluate their application for site plan. And so you can approve it with conditions, or you could say, based on trustee Sam's testimony and the position of Turtle Creek Township, I vote to deny this because of these 3 factors that are highlighted in red, because having one which is a short stub out of Shaker Run into a 30-acre development with, I think I heard 70-some lots, is contrary to the public's interest because there are public health and safety and welfare issues, but specifically the vehicular access, or two, the police, fire, and EMS response time, or number three, the emergency access facilities and public safety issue. So that's the big decision for you to make. The ancillary issue, again, is they want you to allow them to deviate from the side yard setback. And that criteria is back on slide 14.
But none of that has changed in the last 2 weeks.
It has not. It's just tonight, it's attempt to clarify for everyone present this confusion about waiver, because we call this a waiver instead of a variance of the side yard setback in the mixed-use zoning classification. And that whole issue got sidetracked because no one knew whether Planning Commission just had that decision or this board had that decision. And what I'm saying to you is, even though you can evaluate the access from a public health, safety, and general welfare, which is D2, and you could say, I think the access is insufficient, it would have an adverse impact on public health, safety, general welfare, one or all of those three elements, and I'm gonna vote to deny this thing. But there is not a waiver request, because the waiver is of development standards, and there is no development standard relating to access. That's not something for you to decide, but you can evaluate whether the access is sufficient when you're making a decision about the site plan.
On the macro basis of the site plan review.
I
Correct.
suspect that Commissioner Young and I are unified in this, how we would vote if we voted today, but I would want to make, I would want to make sure that everybody who wants to be able to provide, I think the applicant deserves the opportunity to be able to provide their rebuttal evidence, but.
And your script that you're following there, will be the next part of the process. You now heard from every opponent that wanted to testify the previous hearing or tonight, and now it's their turn, and they've asked for a continuance because they want to present some evidence to rebut perhaps what Trustee Sams had to say.
You have one more person that wants to speak.
And I think there's one more person who wants to. Is there one more person?
Yeah, sorry, it's Michael Perry. And maybe.
Can you just restate your name, please, and affirm that you've been sworn in already?
I'm so sorry for this. So Phil Garber, 1367 Barton Lane, and I affirm that I was sworn in previously. And I think this is important as I read the last two bullets on the waiver request as well, just to further solidify if they want to have a rebuttal to this. Is it truly consistent and compatible with the other development in the local area, and consistent with the suggestions of the comprehensive plan? As we discussed previously, there was no comprehensive plan. So, and I don't believe it's consistent with the previous. So I think it's more than just public safety. I would also like to amend on the site plan that remember the types of homes that they said they're going to build in this area and the target audience of those homes. So I just wanted to understand further, perhaps from council, of what those two mean, because I don't understand exactly.
Well, that's for the commissioners to decide, but the commissioners will review each of the criteria, and maybe they're applicable, maybe they're not. They don't have to address all five of them, especially if they're not applicable, but that's for them to decide.
Thank you for being here again today.
But this is where we do have discretion, correct, Bruce?
You don't have discretion.
No, discretion on interpreting these five
yeah.
standards that we can say, oh, it failed on all five, or it failed on one, and the failure on one was substantive enough to decline.
That is correct.
That's relative to the discretion.
Well, yeah, and we've taken in testimony from the township trustees and others that,
Yeah, I think it's simple at this point. I would move for a continuance of this hearing to grant the applicant. I think that's consistent, and we try to be fair to everyone, so I've got no problem moving forward with the continuance.
is there a date?
September 26th at 10 a.m. is your next available.
September 26th at 10 a.m. Second, roll call, please.
Mrs. Jones? Mr. Young?
Well, with one point of discussion, Mr. McGarry, are you available?
I am. I was just had 28 ring in my head, but that's a
That's the
Thursday.
Thursday meeting.
Just like tonight, another Thursday night.
Yeah.
I will second that.
Okay, and roll call, I'm sorry.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes. Very good.
Okay, this hearing is continued till then. Thank you all for being here once again, and hopefully you'll be able to finish up on the 26th. Okay,
Commissioners, I just want to say thank you again for your consideration, sincerely appreciate it.
you're welcome. Thank you.
Although you put me in a really bad mood when you said Stoller, so.
That was in a prior lifetime, I have not been involved in stock for maybe a decade.
I haven't been involved with it for minutes.
I didn't even know that, I apologize.
Oh, yeah.
Tiffany?
I just have one question, not related to any of this. We have the upcoming contract for the design services of the SWAT garage. We've been presented, and how it was laid out in terms of the proposals was kind of the design, the criteria architect design of both the SWAT garage and gun range, as well as a combination with the DTF that you could potentially include. I just want to make sure that that's still the case. The price we've received is for both. So in terms of just the design, it doesn't mean you have to build, the entire kit and caboodle, but they will be presenting the options in terms of that. So I just wanted to.
So the options.
Yes, so I just wanted to
A, B,
confirm.
C, D kind of a thing. and
Well, they'll
Price-
just kind of
price
be,
on both of
this
them,
will
or all
kind
of
of just be like two, DTF separate, SWAT garage and gun range
And
as
when-
one, and a combined.
And when are they scheduled to do that?
You will be getting the contract. Trevor is waiting for me to give him the go-ahead that the one price is fine. We're gonna design all of it, criteria architect all of it, moving forward, and then we will bid it out at a later time.
Yes, I just want to stay on the record, though, the fact that we are allowing this, various options to be presented doesn't mean that, from my standpoint, we're obligated in any way to be able to provide a location, and that is the issue that I think will require some deliberation and understanding.
Yes, I think Martin and myself, I think we're aware that is, that will require, further discussion in terms of what actually gets constructed. So that's all that I have.
Fair enough.
Bruce, anything else?
Nothing else.
Make a motion to adjourn.
And yes, thank you. Yes.